The House Oversight Committee's report on President Biden's use of the autopen raises questions about his 11th hour batch of pardons and clemencies. While some critics call for his actions to be considered null and void, others are saying this points to deeper questions about presidential clemency powers. Let's bring in former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. Tom, what questions do you have still about the former president's use of the autopen?
Well, John, I have a lot more questions after reading this report, which is a bit of a blockbuster. Look, we always knew that very strange things were afoot in the final days of the Biden administration. And what this report shows is not only that aides who were very close to President Biden in those final days went on kind of an autopen signing signature frenzy, but they may possibly have done so and signed President Biden's name to pardons without President Biden's knowledge or approval. We don't exactly know what went on behind the scenes, but I think the committee has done a very good job of trying to put a spotlight on this. And now it's asking the Justice Department to take a look to see if it can figure out what went on.
Yeah, it strikes me that all of these people who are going to no King's Day parades might take a look at that and wonder whether there were people in the White House who were not elected issuing pardons.
Well, that's the thing. Our Constitution vests the power of the pardon in the president and the president alone. And although presidents in the past have used autopens in the modern era, and that's accepted, what you can't do is sign the president's name to something using the autopen that the president himself hasn't approved. And that's what I think the Justice Department is going to have to get to the bottom of here.
Andy McCarthy is a well-known and frequent guest on Fox, former assistant U.S. attorney. Here's what he wrote in National Review. He says, no one is going to be prosecuted over the Biden pardons, which will not be judicially nullified. Under the immunity ruling, it is up to Congress to address executive misconduct. Beyond the Comer Committee's exposure of the autopen pardon malfeasance, there is nothing more to be done. A little bit disheartening, I guess, in a country that prides itself on the rule of law, Tom.
Well, look, I think Andy is absolutely right in that any prosecution arising from this whole autopen situation would be difficult. They interviewed President Biden, and he claimed, at least he said, that he had approved all of these. That may or may not be true, but it would be difficult to prove it, given that Biden himself has said, yeah, I signed off on all these pardons. But I do think there is more to be done here in the sense of Congress, as Andy noted, is Congress putting a spotlight on all of this, bringing it to the attention of the American public, and maybe Congress can take some action here, possibly putting permissible limits on the use of the autopen, or otherwise trying to bring in some safeguards to ensure that when the pardon power is exercised, it's actually done at the behest of the president, not at the behest of aides to the president who are trying to put one over on him.
More now from Andy McCarthy. He writes, I am mildly amused by the ongoing controversy, which Republicans have labeled the autopen presidency. That's because they don't call it what it really is, the pardon scandal, which is to say yet another scandal involving a constitutional power of the presidency that should have been repealed years ago and has become synonymous with corruption. What do you think about that last part? Do you think it's time that presidents lose the ability to just willy-nilly forgive federal crimes?
Well, I'm not sure I would eliminate the pardon power entirely. Look, it's been part of our Constitution for hundreds of years, and I think it can serve a very valid purpose when you have people who are wrongfully convicted or who have turned over a new leaf in prison and deserve to get a pardon. But what happened at the end of the Biden presidency is very disturbing in that he pardoned about 2,500 people, including people who had committed very serious crimes without having conducted any sort of individualized analysis of whether or not these people were in fact deserving of presidential mercy. That's a problem. And I do think it would be appropriate for Congress to at least try to look into these apparent abuses that happened at the end of the Biden presidency and see what we can do to prevent something like that from happening again.
And of course, he pardoned his own son, which he said he would never, ever, ever do. Tom Dupree. Tom, thank you.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.